Live.
Okay. Okay. We're waiting on, I don't see Vice Chair Watchman. And is that all we're waiting on? Our transcriptionist is live, yeah?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Vice Chair Watchman.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Okay, so are we good to go? Do we have everybody online? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, commissioners. It's great to see you again after having a bit of a break from our business meeting last week. We'll dive right in. Agenda item 1, call to order and roll call. 1A, call for quorum. It is 8:01 a.m. on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. I call this meeting of the Independent Redistricting Commission to order. For the record, the Executive Assistant, Valerie Newman, will be taking roll. When your name is called, please indicate you are present. If you're unable to respond verbally, we ask that you please type your name. Val.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair Watchman.
Present.
Commissioner Lerner.
Present.
Commissioner Meal.
Present.
Commissioner York.
Present.
Chairperson Newberg.
Present.
And for the record, also in attendance is Executive Director Brian Schmidt, Deputy Director Lori Van Heron, Public Information Officer Michelle Crank, Community Outreach Coordinators Marie Chappell and Alex Pena. And we have from Snell and Wilmer, Brett Johnson and Eric Spencer. From Ballard Spar is Roy Herrera and Daniel Herrera. Our mapping consultants today are Mark Flahan from Timmins, Doug Johnson and Ivy Beller-Sikansky from NDC Research, and Debbie Wilkes, our transcriptionist. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please note for the minutes that a quorum is present. Agenda item 1B, call for notice. Val, was the notice and agenda for the commission meeting properly posted 48 hours in advance of today's meeting?
Yes, it was, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, approval of minutes from October 28th, 2021. We have agenda item A, which was the general session. We have 2 executive session minutes. Agenda item B, the first session was advice on VRA compliance, polarization, and performance with regard to the legal counsel meeting with the Latino Coalition and the Navajo Nation representatives. And the second executive session was regarding advice on VRA compliance, polarization, and performance regarding our congressional maps. Is there any discussion regarding the general session or executive session minutes?
Chair Newberg, I have one correction to the minutes, and that is in the discussion about the votes on legislative maps. There is the motion was approved 3-2 for 9.2. The first time and second time are correct. The third time it should have 3-2 instead of 3-0. Otherwise, I have no changes.
Thank you for catching that. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion to approve the general session and executive session minutes with the noted change from Commissioner Lerner.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I move to approve all 3 sets of minutes.
Commissioner Meal seconds.
With no further discussion, Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye, and with that, the general session and executive session minutes are approved. Thank you again, Val. We'll move to agenda item number 3, opportunity for public comments. Public comment will now open for a minimum of 30 minutes and remain open until the adjournment of the meeting. Comments will only be accepted electronically in writing on the link provided in the notice and agenda for this public meeting and will be limited to 3,000 characters. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-43101H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. We'll move to agenda item number 4, discussion of public comments received prior to today's meeting. I'll open it up to my colleagues first. I think my colleagues are silenced because I think we're finally, the public feedback is a lot. It's wonderful. We have a very engaged public. It's keeping us very, very busy. A few things that I want to add. I know some people in the public are questioning or wondering how all 5 commissioners receive all public feedback. You know, it's a volunteer position, so we can't all attend each and every public hearing. I want to reassure the public that, you know, all hearings are taped. Our mapping team is recording data, and we as commissioners receive so many different formats and methods of receiving that type of data. Again, the public comments, the verbal languages, the maps that are coming in. And I would even say we go beyond that, where we're studying and learning from people actually who aren't showing up, who either don't understand how to show up or don't have the time to show up. That's where some of our learning, you know, PowerPoint presentations to understand the demography, et cetera, comes in. So there's multiple sources of information, and I'm so deeply appreciative to my colleagues for, you know, the good faith efforts you're making to master what is a tremendous amount of material. And to the public, I give you remarkable credit for the constructiveness and the tone with which the information is being shared. I want to acknowledge we had our first town hall, a virtual town hall on Saturday, went 5 hours, 40 minutes. We enabled the chat function in order to be able to have our staff communicate the next 10 people who would be called on, matter of efficiency. And when I first started, and there's just under 300 people on the line, all with strong partisan feelings, I had a moment of concern, thinking, what is this chat going to look like? And I have to tell you, I am blown away by the remarkable civil, constructive dialogue that our citizens engaged on or with on that chat function. I mean, you know, nothing. I mean, nothing that caused alarm, concern. It was a beautiful display of civic discourse, and Arizona citizens, wow, I'm super impressed. A couple other things I want to mention. I know that there's concerns about which maps were adopted and by whom, who submitted the maps. Once maps are posted online, or once somebody shares an idea with us, commissioners are looking at the quality and integrity of the ideas that are being presented. If we vote to approve something, it's our idea. It isn't somebody else's map. The reality is, given that pretty much the majority of independents, about 75% of independents, really do lean in a partisan way and really behave more like partisans, we have to understand that the public feedback that we're receiving and all the maps we're receiving, the overwhelming majorities of them are from people with partisan perspectives. It's our job to sift through it and pick the things that we like and that we don't like. So to focus on who submitted a map, I think brings us into a dialogue that's really not at all destructive and constructive or relevant. What I will say, though, is I promise the community to do a much better job of slowing the process down so that everybody understands why certain maps are being debated more and others aren't. I remember when I interviewed and I, asked about my weakness, I mentioned that I could be very impatient sometimes and just move quickly. And I think that showed in the last deliberation, where maybe the commission made determinations very quickly and we moved on. But we'll do a better job of explaining that. That's it for me on the public comments. Thank you. Keep them coming. And if there's nothing else from my colleagues, we will move to agenda item number 5, potential update discussion regarding polarization data from mapping. I don't believe we have an update on this agenda item today. If I can get clarification from mapping team.
Sure, Chair Newberg, this is Doug Johnson from NDC, and just the only update is that it's underway. So we've identified the elections that we need to look at, and we're pulling the data and getting that analysis going, but nothing to report today in terms of results.
Okay, and by next Tuesday, do you anticipate that data being available for us to be able to continue to do just additional, review of our districts and begin to even, look at VRA issues more closely?
That is our target. We are wandering into some primary election analysis this time, which is data that has not been cleaned up as the general election data was cleaned up. So it depends on how much work it takes to process that primary election data. But that is our hope.
Okay.
I have a quick question for Doug. This is Commissioner York. Are you only looking at the draft maps, or are you looking at the previous Latino Coalition suggestion with CD3 also?
We're starting with the draft maps. Well, on legislative side, we're starting on the draft maps. On the congressional map, yes, we do have the request from the commission to look at that district, so we'll look at that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe explain, Doug, just for the public's awareness of why we're now looking into the primary data. Why is this something that you're focused on?
It just is an extra data point, just to confirm that the districts that the commission is considering fully comply with the requirements from the Federal Voting Rights Act.
Right. When we're looking at polarization of voting, there needs to be enough races and enough data to be able to pull information from. So looking at primaries where there are, differences can help shed light on, I guess, polarization behavior, correct?
Yes, and it's obviously, there are some jurisdictions where polarization doesn't show up in the general. People vote more by party label in the general, but in the primary, racial or ethnic polarization can appear when both candidates are from the same party. So we want to be sure that we're identifying any history of that happening if it's happening.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
With that, we can move to agenda item number 6, update from mapping team. Related agenda A, updated status of obtaining polarization data based on approved draft maps and potential related variations. And B, review of draft maps and opportunity for discussion regarding draft maps, adherence to Article 4, Part 2, Section 1, numbers 14 and 15 of the Arizona Constitution. And let me, kind of introduce this topic. It's the commission's desire to, divide up the districts. We have, 39 of them, maybe roughly a fourth each business meeting. And just for due diligence, to review each district one at a time, to, take stock of, the constitutional criteria that were used as a basis for that district. It's an opportunity for us as commissioners to emphasize that, what we felt comfortable with. If there are aspects of it that, aren't great, we could mention that. However, there is a boundary. I want to be clear that this is an exercise to understand the districts and how they're performing regarding the constitutional criteria. This is not a problem-solving or deliberative activity. So let's keep our comments to how these districts behave, perform, how do they look according to the 6 constitutional criteria, without giving suggestions for how to fix anything that you may not like. Problem solving and deliberation will happen after the 30-day public review is completely done. Is there any questions about kind of the ground rules or the underlying goal of what this exercise is? Okay, then I'll turn it over to mapping to lead us through this agenda item.
Good morning. Before we jump right into the draft maps, and I think this is a good segue in there. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. We were talking about draft maps, and you guys were talking about public comments. We showed this at the Mapping Monday section. So when people come here and hit provide feedback, they get this survey to provide you feedback. So what we did is the same thing with the listening tour and created a dashboard of all of that feedback that's easy to sort. This is available publicly, so anybody in the public can also get to this, as well as the commission. It loads a fresh set of data every time that we load it. So you can see here at the top, here's the dates that you're getting comments in. The middle table here is the top 10 commented citizen submitted plans. And then the bottom is the top 10 commented draft map plans. And then on the right-hand side is the actual public comment that they left, when it was submitted, by who, and what is the comment regarding. So if you're interested in seeing comments, just say, number 1 is the approved legislative draft map. I can click on that bar and it sorts all the comments here now on the right side. So if you want to read comments just for that one approved legislative draft map, you can. If you want to pick a certain date, you can even say what came in on the 8th. And now it's going to sit there and it just sorted all of that by the 8th. All the most recent comments are at the top, so it is in order when you look at this. But you can see here are all my comments that are just of the 8th. So it allows you to easily sort of sort through the data. If you want to reset it, just click the bars again, and it will reset itself back to the normal view. If you want to look at citizen submitted plans, you can come over here and click on LDF 037, and it's now sorted all the data for comments about that citizen submitted plan. So there's ways to really dig into the data here. If you wanted to interact with this chart down here, this donut chart, and you want to just see the citizen submitted plan, same thing, you click on it. Here's the 46 comments of all the citizen submitted plans here at your fingertips. The other thing you'll notice here on the top right-hand side is you can filter comments for just grid maps. If you want to look at just grid map comments, if you want to look at citizen submitted maps, here's all the maps that people have submitted comments on. And then draft maps, here is all of the draft map comments that people have commented on. And you can see some of the topics, since it's a free text field, you might have to dig through this a little bit, because you can see approved legislative draft map version 10, then approved legislative draft map 10.0. So those are the same. If the people hit provide feedback and left our filler in there, so if they hit approved congressional draft map, we would write in there approved congressional draft map. If they did not change that, then it automatically shows in here. You would have to go search through here. So that is available here at your fingertips. If you want to download the actual raw data, you can go over here to the 3 little lines and click on download data. And this is also available publicly. So you can come over here and view the data table if you want. And here's all the data at your fingertips. If you want to download it, click the little cloud, and here's all your download options: CSV, KML, shapefile. Just hit the download button and it'll download you a copy of the data. So that is available today at your fingertips in the public. So maybe it might be an easier way for you to still public comment, but here it is. With that, unless there's any questions, I will turn it back over to Doug.
Mark, this is Commissioner Meal. What comments end up on this dashboard? Is it only the ones submitted to the website?
Yeah, it's only the comments that when you click provide feedback here from the mapping hub.
Can I just say this is an amazing amount of information, a great tool, and it'll be a lot to sort through, but I'm hoping that not only do we do this, which I know we will, but I hope the public takes a look at this too, because I think it'll be really good information.
Nice job, Mark.
Thanks.
So Mark, what about the written comments? I know that, periodically we get from the director a letter, and I'm going to assume that maybe the letters aren't recorded on the system here. How do we capture that information?
I will let staff answer that question. These are just all the answers of the survey that we have.
Sure. So as we get those, we send them out to all the commissioners. We're going to work with Mark to see if there's a way where we can also include those on the hub somewhere, so the public can see them as well.
I think one of the most important, this is amazing, Mark, and I just want to say every week, you come up with easier, better ways for the public to engage and for the commissioners to understand the data. I heard Mapping Monday was fabulous. So, your graciousness in just trying to help everybody in the community use the system is really appreciated. I think it's important that we all acknowledge different groups are comfortable with different formats of submitting feedback. And so the commissioners are getting feedback in all of these different methods. Some people will look at, well, at the public hearing, this percentage of the group had this idea. We need to think about it more holistically, because this also is a different format of data that we pay attention to. And so the commissioners are capable of understanding different languages, data languages, and methods. So we have to think about it holistically. And with that, I'll turn it to Doug.
Okay. Ready to jump into the discussion of the districts? As requested, we'll do these in sections each week. So this week we're starting with congressional districts 1 through 3 and legislative districts 1 through 7. So why don't we zoom into District 1 and the congressional map. So this district is entirely in Maricopa County. It involves the cities and census designated places or it includes the cities or census designated places of Anthem, Carefree, Cave Creek, Fountain Hills, New River, Paradise Valley, Rio Verde, and then parts of Phoenix and Scottsdale. We have, as you know, the full statistics available to everybody, but just to briefly walk through them, this district is nearly perfectly balanced. It's off from the ideal by 1 person or 0%. It is in citizen voting age population. It's 13% Hispanic or Latino, 3% Black or African American, 4% Asian or Pacific Islander, and 2% Native American, and 78% non-Hispanic white. It is highly competitive on the commission scale, both from vote spread. There's a 1.6% spread between the Democratic and Republican sum of the votes in our key elections, and on the swing votes scale. So it is, of the 9 elections we look at for a swing, the Democratic candidate won 5 and the Republican candidate won 4. It is not considered one of our VRA effective districts with those due to the low CVAP percentages. And then on compactness, we have looked at the compactness scores of each of the districts. On the REOC test, it's a 0.37. On the convex hull test, it's a 0.79. On the Groffman test, it's a 6.3. Schwartzberg, it's a 1.78, and Polsby Popper, it's a 0.32. And just as a reminder for those that want more detail on the different compactness tests, refer you back to our August 31st commission meeting where we went through all the different tests and what each means. The key thing is for the Groffman, convex hull, REOC, and Polsby Popper scores, those are our ratios, and closer to 1 is best and 0 is worst. So I don't know if you want me to pause after each district and see if there's any questions, or should I walk through the 3 congressional districts and take questions all at once?
No, I prefer to go through them one at a time. And so looking at those numbers, Doug, in terms of compactness, we understand, what you're saying, it's better, where to be, but how does it compare, to expectations? Is that considered good? What kind of grade would it be? Could it get better? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and Mark, if you can put the map back on. Ultimately, all these are measures of trying to capture how the district looks, and are we bypassing people to get to another group of people? So those are pretty, they're decent, certainly decent scores. The perimeter test is going to be short because it's an urban district. That's largely driven by whether it's an urban or rural district, not so much by compactness. And you can see, if you look at the map, the one weird bump into this district is where District 4 comes up into it in the south. And that is entirely because of the request of the Salt River Reservation to be kept with South Scottsdale and Tempe. So the famous quote, or the famous idea from the Supreme Court is that compactness is a flag. Where something's not compact, it should raise a question that you then ask, why is it not compact? And in this case, the piece that's keeping this from being a more compact district is very clearly explained. So
thank you. That's the exact type of point that I'd like us to be able to just understand, acknowledge, so that when we are seeing, something not as compact, that we understand why. That and to honor a significant community of interest like that, carries a lot of weight.
And I just turned on the border of Salt River Reservation.
Yeah. Very helpful.
Any other questions or comments about Congressional District 1?
No, it seems to do an excellent job of addressing the 6 constitutional criteria to the extent practicable.
Good. Okay, then we'll move on to Congressional District 2. So this is the big northern district around the Pinal. It includes all of Coconino County, Yavapai County, Gila County, Navajo County, and Apache County. It includes the San Carlos Reservation portion of Graham County, and it includes the Kaibab and Hualapai reservations and some semi-adjacent tribal lands in Mojave County. And then it actually has a piece of Maricopa County. It has the Gila River Reservation piece of Maricopa County in it as well. Excuse me, in Pinal County, there are lots and lots of communities, as you can see there, ranging from Action Village, Blackwater, Cactus Forest, Casablanca, Dudleyville, portions of Florence and Gold Canyon, Goodyear Village, Hayden, Kearney, Mammoth, Maricopa, a little bit of Queen Creek, Queen Valley, portions of San Manuel and Santan Valley, Santa Cruz, Superior, Top of the World, White Camp Village, and Winkleman are all in there. In the statistics, again, this is a congressional district. It's drawn to be just within one person of the ideal. So this case, District 2 is actually one person short, which again is a 0% deviation. Looking at the citizen voting age population, it's 13% Latino, 21% Native American by CVAP, 2% Black or African American, 1% Asian or Pacific Islander, and 62% non-Hispanic white. It's worth noting the alternative measure of Native American strength that we're looking at, the non-Hispanic Native American single race voting age population number is 18%. So that number always comes in a little lower than the Native American percentage of citizen voting age population. On the competitiveness measure, this district is just barely outside the commission's defined competitive range. By commission, a 7% vote spread district is somewhat competitive, and this one's at 7.6, so just 0.6% outside of that range. On the swing vote measures, all 9 elections were won by the Republican. And by our Voting Rights Act tracking figures, this is not a effective Voting Rights Act district. Neither of the 2 candidates we track for that win in this seat. On a compactness measure, in this case, we're looking at obviously by the polygon area and perimeter scores. This one is huge because it is so rural. But on the REOX score, we get a 0.6. The convex hull, we get a 0.83. The Groffman score is a 6.48. Schwartzberg is 1.83, and Polsby-Popper is 0.3. Any questions or discussion about District 2?
Well, I think it's clear that, contiguity and compactness has, been, it is less in order to accommodate the extremely important communities of interest of the Native Americans and try to, while respecting, all constitutional criteria, try to empower that community of interest, to elect a leader as much as possible. So I think this is a perfect example of some of the compromises that need to be made on some of the criteria in order to accomplish what the essence of our goal is, which is, helping people elect leaders to represent them. So.
Chair Newberg, I have a question about that. Based on the numbers that you're seeing, this is a very high Native American district, high percentage, and to some extent was designed with that when it drew in Gila River Indian community. Doug Johnson, do you feel that this district actually gives the Native Americans, based on the numbers that you've shown us, an opportunity to elect a candidate of choice based on their voting patterns?
It wouldn't count as a kind of a Voting Rights Act effective or strong opportunity to elect district, but it is the largest opportunity to elect that can be drawn, given the total population requirements of congressional districts in Arizona and the size of the Native American population. I think the only alternatives that have come anywhere close to it are, we saw a couple of those creative ones that start with the Apache reservations in the east, wrap around the north, and get the entire river and come all the way around to the Tohono O'odham, and essentially get a very creatively drawn, nearly full circle district, and which obviously does all kinds of impacts on every community around it, and takes the Tohono O'odham and the other southern tribes away from the Tucson ties that they have talked about wanting. So I think it does kind of, within a reasonable amount, maximize the Native American ability to elect, but it wouldn't count as a true effective district of where they'd be a majority of the vote on a regular basis. But as the state has seen in the somewhat similar existing district, this tends to be a highly competitive district where certainly the large Native American vote is a significant factor in who wins that seat.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because on the congressional level, there just aren't numbers that are there for the Native American community and the geographic locations that are required to create a VRA district where they can elect a candidate of their choice. However, I think this district, we worked hard to keep it competitive enough such that I believe it requires accountability, where the Native Americans will be the single largest minority group and will be a force in this district. There'll be a very meaningful population.
But just, Doug Johnson, just on your comment in terms of that, it falls outside of our competitive range. So when you mentioned the competitiveness there, I just want to clarify that it's on the outside of our big competitive range, which are often not as competitive as we like to think. That's correct from what you were saying?
Yes, it's at 7.6%, just 0.6% out outside of the defined range, so right on the edge.
Yeah.
Any other comments, or if not, we'll move on to District 3. So in District 3, we're back in Maricopa County. So this district is again entirely in Maricopa. It's primarily in Phoenix, although obviously not all of Phoenix. The city's too big for just one district. It also has Guadalupe, a portion of Glendale, a portion of Avondale, and a portion of Peoria in it. On the numbers, it's again right at population balance. It's 1% short of perfect, so 0% off from perfect. On the citizen voting age population numbers, it is majority Latino at just over 50%. fractionally over 50% Hispanic or Latino citizen voting age, 12% Black or African American, 3% Asian Pacific Islander, 2% Native American by CVAP, and 32% non-Hispanic white by CVAP. Our other measure of Native American strength is actually in this case also 2% by the non-Hispanic Native American single race voting age population. On a competitive scale, this district is not even close to competitive. It has a 40.3% vote spread. On the swing scale, the Democratic candidate won all 9 of the elections we look at. And on our Voting Rights Act tracking elections, it does perform with the Democratic candidate for governor in 2018 getting 63.7% of the vote, and the Democratic, these are both Latino candidates, the Latino Democratic candidate for Attorney General in 2018 getting 69% of the vote. So it is a Voting Rights Act compliant effective district for Latinos. On the compactness scores, it's urban Maricopa County, so the polygon and perimeter scores are pretty low. REOC score is 0.48. The convex hull measure is 0.73. Groffman is 5.89. Schwartzberg 1.66. And Polsby-Popper is 0.36. So of the districts we've looked at, this one does have, excuse me, the highest score so far. And if you look at it on the map, you can see it's a relatively compact district. It's about as close to a circle as you actually get, and then it's got the northern arm added on to it, where it goes up through Glendale and into Peoria to pick up additional population and stay compliant with the Voting Rights Act. So happy to answer any questions you may have about that.
Hey, Doug, can I see the boundary for the city of Phoenix? Mark, can you drop that in there?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 1 second. Oops.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think this district's works well based on the constitutional criteria in a number of ways. I'm not saying that there might not be a few small little modifications, to clean up for all communities of interest, but clearly this is a community of interest. It empowers the Latino community to elect a candidate of their choice. It performs. It's compact. It has equal population. I think we're giving up competitiveness, but when it's VRA, if it's a VRA district and it's necessary to help a group have political expression, then competitiveness, needs to not be considered as highly because obviously that's, we consider competitive districts where to do so would create no significant detriment to the other goal. Making it more competitive would create significant detriment, in my belief, to the Latino community. Well, I want to clarify. I don't want to. You can make it competitive. What I mean is to seek achieving a competitive district would require not honoring and empowering the Latino community. So.
Okay. If there's any other questions or comments? If not, we'll come back to the congressional map next week to go through a couple more. And for now, we'll switch over to the legislative map. Okay. So we'll start this off with District 1. Again, this is a district entirely in Maricopa County. It actually it's almost entirely Phoenix, although it has about 1,500 people from Scottsdale and about 1,500 people from Tempe in it. Otherwise, it's entirely Phoenix. In terms of the numbers, it is off from the ideal by about 1,300 people, or about 0.5%. In terms of citizen voting age population, it is 27% Hispanic or Latino, 8% non-Hispanic Black, 3% non-Hispanic Asian. On the Native American front, it's 3% of CVAP and 2% of single race voting age population, and it's 59% non-Hispanic white. On competitiveness, this is not a competitive district. It's 41% spread, and on the swing scale, it's the Democratic candidate wins all 9 elections that we look at. And given the 27% Latino CVAP, it's not a race we're tracking for Voting Rights Act compliance, but the Latino Democratic candidates do win the governor's race and the attorney general's race that we look at.
All right.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to stop sharing. I'll pull up the numbers in a second. I just got to get them. So you can keep talking.
Sure. On the compactness front, the legislative districts are obviously going to do better on the polygon and perimeter tests because they're so much smaller than congressional districts in terms of population, and thus because of area. On the REOC score is 0.37. The convex hull score is 0.67. Rothman is 6.15. Schwartzberg is 1.74. And Polsby-Popper is 0.33.
Doug, would you be able to send those data sheets to us?
Yes, and we'll get the full compactness scores for both maps posted on the hub as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm bringing it up right now.
If I may add, on District 3 on the southeast boundary, it does run along the Salt River. So that was a geographic feature that was taken into account.
Almost there. Hold on a sec. All right. This is a little different spreadsheet because we have a lot more districts in the legislative, and a lot more cities and everything. But those are the numbers.
And if you can show the map for a second, Mark.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on this anyways, so it sits on one screen.
So yeah, you can see, on the compactness scores, no surprise, it's essentially an L shape and fairly close to a rectangle.
Would you be able to overlay the school districts, please?
School districts, yeah. Our youth, we have them divided by elementary and secondary. So let's take a look. So elementary, Osborne is here. That's Phoenix Elementary District in the yellow. That is Crichton Elementary District. That's Balls Elementary School District. That is Tempe School Union. I think there was another little piece here. Yep, Wilson Elementary School District. On the top, we got Washington Elementary School District, Madison Elementary School District. And I think that's it for elementary school. Yep. For secondary school districts, zoom out a tiny bit. That is Phoenix Union High School District. So you can see that fits most of the district. In the corner here is Glendale Union. And in the corner down here is Tempe Union High School District. In our layer, that is the unified layer. Still don't think Paradise Valley Unified District is in the corner. And in this little teeny one over here, that is Scottsdale Unified. But I think if we were to zoom in here, that is the Mountain Park. So if we looked at it with aerial imagery, we can see that that is one of the mountain parks in Phoenix. That little
Thank you.
tip.
Yeah,
Mhm.
unoccupied, obviously.
Yep.
Thank you.
And those are the compactness scores for District 1.
Any commentary from my colleagues on communities of interest in this area? You know, the one comment I want to make, I know Ivy mentioned the Salt River boundary at the southern border. I think there are other geographic borders that we could also look at in this area, because there are certain communities of interest, particularly the zoo area, Papago Park, communities that I think could fit many places. So, but none of that would change the compactness or contiguity. I'm not making any suggestions or ideas. Just commenting on the borders.
I will say some of these reports and numbers that we're showing you today, it is available live in the system. So for like compactness, if you wanted to hit the button here under the review tab that says compactness tests, there's all the numbers that we're showing you today right there in the system. So you can do that for any plan. And if you wanted to get it more in a report form, you can hit the report button. And you can go to district compactness, pick whatever report format you want, PDF, Excel, HTML, hit OK, and the system will generate your report, and there's a report. So these things are available in the system right now, today. So anybody can run these. Same with the cities, you can hit the assigned district splits report here, and you can run it against the cities that we were showing you. It will take minutes to run, so I don't want to do it here live in the session. But I can show you what one of them looks like if you wanted to see one, because I've already ran a couple. I mean, if you want to see what one of the PDFs would come back with, this is what would come back out of the system. So same thing that we showed you in Excel cleaned up, but it is available. So anybody can run those.
Okay, anything else on D1? I presume mapping team, I mean, it's not a competitive district. In order to, try to make it more competitive, we'd be disrupting a lot of communities of interest.
Okay. With that, I can jump into District 2 unless there's any other comments or questions. Okay, and we'll move just a little bit to the north. District 2, geographically is easy to describe. It's all in Phoenix. So it's a purely Maricopa and purely Phoenix district. By the numbers, it is currently overpopulated. It's just short of 12,000 people overpopulated at 4.98% above the target. So it's within our rough plus or minus 5% rule of thumb, but it does have extra people in it. By citizen voting age population, it's 19% Hispanic or Latino, 5% Black or African American, 3% Asian American. And by both citizen voting age population and single race VAP, it is 2% Native American, with the rest being 71% non-Hispanic white. On competitiveness, it is a highly competitive district. Its vote spread is 3.3%, and its swing, look at the 9 elections we look at for swings, the Democratic Party won 6, the Republican Party won 3. So we did swing 3 different times. And again, it under 20% Latino by citizen voting age population. It's not one of the districts we're tracking for Voting Rights Act compliance or being an effective district. But it is a highly competitive district. On the compactness side, this district actually does quite well. It's 0.63 on the REOC score, 0.9 on the convex hull score, 4.39 on Groffman, 1.24 on Schwartzberg, and 0.65 by Polsby-Popper. Any questions or comments about this?
Doug, this is Commissioner Lerner. I have a question about the overpopulation that we have. I assume we're going to be working on reducing those, right? Because right now we have a number of districts that are they're over and underpopulated. I assume as we work towards final, we're going to try to move that to as close to 0 as possible with all of them.
Yes, that is a goal the commission has expressed, and certainly something we hope to do. Yeah, in a district like this, moving 4,000 folks is going to be just a small little notch off the corner kind of thing, where they're in these dense urban districts. So yes, we are anticipating the request to do that after the public listening tour.
Yeah, in District 28, this purple one up here is short 11,000.
Yeah, let's not go into problem solving, but I think that what we're hearing, and I too, look at it and say if there's a way to decrease the population deviance, that'd be a goal worth looking into. If it's not compromising, a higher principles, communities of interest and things like that.
If I may also add again that in District 2, it encompasses the Sunny Slope neighborhood of Phoenix.
Yeah, I agree. I'm certainly not interested in problem solving today. I just mentioned that because I know we've had other things come up about underpopulated with, for example, the Navajo Nation. So that's why I was asking about that.
And I see no other concerns on the other constitutional criteria from my perspective.
Okay, we'll jump to District 3. We are staying in Maricopa County. This district has all of Carefree, Cave Creek, Fountain Hills, and Rio Verde. It has a large percentage of Scottsdale and a large share of Northeast Phoenix as well. So on the numbers, this district is a little bit short of the ideal. It's about just over 1,000 people short, or 0.43% short of the perfect balance. So well within our rule of thumb. Citizen voting age population, it is 5% Hispanic or Latino, 2% Black or African American, 4% Asian American, and then by both measures, citizen voting age population and single race voting age population, it's 1% Native American, and then 88% non-Hispanic white. On our competitiveness scale, it's 20% spread, so it's not in the competitive range. And on the 9 elections we look at, the Republican candidates won all 9 of them. And it obviously, with the percentages I mentioned earlier, it's not a race we're tracking for Voting Rights Act compliance. On the competitive scores, it is on the REAC score, it's a 0.37. On the convex hull, it's 0.83. Groffman is 5.86. Schwartzberg is 1.65. And Polsby-Popper is 0.37. Any comments or questions on this district?
I think it fulfills the 6 criteria nicely. I think they're balanced nicely. You know, it's contiguous. It unites communities of interest. It's definitely, you know, respecting, you know, geographic boundaries. And again, I mean, it's hard to achieve competitiveness without compromising, you know, communities of interest. So.
Okay.
Onward.
Okay. Into District 4, just a little to the south. And again, staying in Maricopa County, this district has all of Paradise Valley, quite a bit of Scottsdale, and then it's mostly made up of Phoenix population. So, by the numbers, it's a little short. It's 1,021 people short of perfect balance, which is 0.43% short. on.
Doug, check your number on that.
I'm reading the wrong row. Sorry.
Yep, check your number.
That was 3. Those numbers probably sounded familiar. That was 3. This is 4. So for 4, we're over by 10,795 and 4.53%. On citizen voting age population, it's 11% Hispanic or Latino. Black or African American is 3%. Asian American is 4%. And by both Native American measures, it's at 1%, leaving it 81% non-Hispanic white. It is almost perfectly competitive. Its vote spread is 0.5%. There's almost perfect balance between Democratic and Republican votes cast in the 9 elections we're tracking. And same thing on the swing. It's a 5-4. So it flipped back and forth, almost perfectly balanced between the two parties, with 5 Democratic wins and 4 Republican wins. And obviously with those Latino citizen voting age percentage numbers, it's not a district we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. Moving over to the compactness scores, it's a 0.37 on the REOC score, a 0.75 on the convex hull score, 5.9 on Groffman, 1.67 on Schwartzberg, and 0.36 on Polsby-Popper.
One request that I would have is to see the city boundaries of Scottsdale overlaid on this.
It is the yellow line on the screen.
Yeah, I see. Okay. So just one thing in terms of respecting boundaries and things like that, it does, I think it's a minor issue, but the shape of it does lead to the other district, Scottsdale, being divided up a lot. It's just something on this map I wanted to point out.
Madam Chair, maybe also just pointing out that the Fort Mcdowell Reservation is in this district too. I don't think you mentioned that.
And how is that fit as a community of interest, Vice Chair Watchman?
Well, they indicated from what I can recall, they're more interested in being associated with Fountain Hills as a common community of interest. And so I think for the most part, we're meeting what their leadership has expressed to us. Yep.
If there's nothing else, we can go to District 5. Now we're moving out of Maricopa County, and District 5 is Yavapai County. And it includes the whole county and follows the county border all the way around. So it's easy to describe. By the numbers, it is slightly short of the ideal at 2,173 short, or 0.91%. In terms of citizen voting age population, it's 10% Hispanic or Latino, 1% Black or African American, 1% Asian American, and by CVAP, it's 2% Native American. By single race voting age population, it's 1% Native American, and it's 86% non-Hispanic white. On the vote spread, it is not competitive with a 28.5% spread. And on the swing votes analysis, the Republicans won all 9 of the elections we look at for that. And given the citizen voting age percentage numbers, it's not a district we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. On the compactness scores, this is really just a measure of the county. The REOC score is 0.47. The convex hull is 0.89. Groffman is 5.07. Schwartzberg 1.43. And Polsby Popper is 0.49. Any questions about this?
And Doug, would you like to share any assessment on how this does in terms of keeping communities of interest together versus separating distinct communities of interest? Because I know, particularly just looking at Sedona, West Sedona, they're broken up. And there are people have different views of what a community of interest is. Some people, see Yavapai County as a whole as a community of interest, and others don't. So I don't know if there's anything you want to share.
The only thing I'd venture is to agree with you that this is one of our hotly debated community of interest debates between, does Verde Valley belong in a Yavapai County district or with Flagstaff? How should Sedona, which is across county, the city crosses the county line. So there's lots of debate both ways on both of those questions.
Right. And then looking at county lines and then looking at geographic transportation corridors. There's so many different ways in which, you could argue based on these constitutional criteria. So it sounds like you're not going to add to that. You're not going to weigh in because you're just concurring that there are choices that are going to have to be made, that nobody's going to get everything that they want here.
Yeah, and I think this is a debate that all 3 commissions have had, and it's a hotly contested debate that ultimately I'm not wading into, because ultimately it's the commission's decision on which way you go into, and I don't think there's a right or wrong on either side of it.
But as it is, it's, when I look through the constitutional criteria, there's justification, it keeps Yavapai together, a lot of communities of interest together, respecting, physical borders, boundaries. Again, this is one of the areas that, communities of interest tend to live together in geographic areas. So competitiveness, is difficult to achieve without compromising too much, representation for communities of interest. So to me, I'm comfortable with how this fulfills, our constitutional requirements, understanding that there's judgment calls.
Since you asked about cities and jurisdictions being split, if you look at the report, you'll see some of these with an asterisk, and that would be a split of a jurisdiction. So you can see Peoria here split because Peoria is in Maricopa and Yavapai County, but there's actually 0 population living in the Yavapai County split that's in this. But you can see Sedona down here has the asterisk, and here's the population that is currently in District 5. So that would mean that that's split.
And that's the kind of data, just Mark and Doug, that I think is helpful for you to keep reminding us of. I thank you for showing us where to find the data, but sometimes we don't even know what to look for. And these are relevant data points when cities are being split up and we have to weigh the pros and cons. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, the other split is Wickenburg in District 5, because Wickenburg spans Maricopa and Yavapai County.
Okay. Anything else on 5?
Our last two to cover today get much more complicated as we wander out of districts that are entirely in a single county. And so we'll start with District 6. District 6 is our kind of far northern district that encompasses a lot of tribal reservations. It has population from, it has just over 50,000 people from Apache County. It has almost 128,000 people from Coconino County, including Flagstaff. It has 7,000, just over 7,000 people from Gila County. It has the San Manuel Tribal Reservation portion of Graham County. It has, let me see, the tribal small piece of Mojave County, which is just the Kaibab and Wallapai Reservation lands. It has 42,000 people from Navajo County. So it's the kind of eastern and northern tribal reservations, along with Flagstaff, and then the far eastern part east of the highway, connecting them, and then lots of small communities around those different areas. By the numbers, it is 4,002 people short of the target population, or 1.68%. Citizen voting age population, it's 7% Hispanic or Latino, 1% Black or African American, 1% Asian American, 33% non-Hispanic white, and then by CVAP, it's 58% Native American, and by single race via voting age population, it's 54% Native American. So this is our majority Native American district. Competitiveness, the vote spread is 42.4%, so nowhere near competitive, with the Democratic candidate winning all 9 of our swing vote analysis elections. And because the focus is on Native American, not on Latino voting age, Voting Rights Act compliance for this district, we're not tracking it with a tracking election. But the Latino Democratic candidates do win both the 2018 governor's race and the 2018 attorney general's race in this district. On a compactness score, obviously given the rural nature and the kind of spread out communities of interest that this one's tying together, we do get a very high, our highest, I believe it's our highest polygon score and our highest perimeter scores of any district. By REOC, it's a 0.4. Convex Hull, it's a 0.64. Groffman is 8.61. Schwartzberg is 2.43. And Polsby-Popper is 0.17. Obviously, as we're bringing together the different tribal reservations into a district focused on that community of interest, we're not having a super great compactness scores, but for a very clearly explainable reason. Any questions or comments on District 6?
I think you explained it very well, Doug, that, the compactness scores, the lack of competitiveness is to honor the communities of interest. And they're geographically in different places. So.
Okay. If there's no other comments, we can go on to District 7. Okay. So, District 7. So the yellow district shown on the map, you can see there. In Apache County, we're getting Concho, Eager, Springerville, St. John's, and Vernon. In Coconino County, we're really getting, roughly speaking, from everything that's south or slightly west of Flagstaff down, going south to the county line, including the eastern portion, the Coconino County portion of Sedona. In Gila County, we're getting all of Gila County except for the tribal reservation lands. Then we come in Navajo County, kind of going alphabetically. We get about 64,000 population, including places like Holbrook, Pinedale, Pinetop Lakeside, Show Low, Snowflake, and Woodruff. And then coming down into Pinal County, this has part of Apache Junction, Dudleyville, part of Florence, Gold Canyon, Kearney, Mammoth, Oracle, San Manuel, Superior, and Winkleman. By the numbers, it is somewhat short of the ideal population. It just under 6,000 short, or 2.48% short of the target population. So well within our 10% overall plan deviation. By citizen voting age population, it's 19% Hispanic or Latino. It's 2% Black or African American, 1% Asian American. By CVAP, it's 5% Native American. By single race voting age population, it's 4% Native American. And by CVAP, it's 72% non-Hispanic white. It is not competitive at a 29.8% vote spread, and the Republicans winning all 9 of the swing elections. And obviously, it's with those numbers, it's not a district we're tracking for effective Voting Rights Act compliance. And so those numbers are both, as noted, won by the Republican candidate. On a compactness score, District 7, again, is a rural seat that has a high, as a result, has a high polygon or perimeter score. It's a 0.32 on the REOC test, 0.52 on the convex hull test, 10.2 on the Groffman score, 2.83 on Schwartzberg, and 0.13 on Polsby-Popper. Any questions? This is the last of the districts that we were going to walk through today. So if you have any questions on this, or the other.
I have one question, Doug. So I was looking at the Hispanic CVAP. I think it was 19%. Is the Latino community living in one particular area in this LD7 map, or is it spread out?
Well, off the top of my head, I know the kind of the Mammoth kind of southern tip of this district is a traditionally heavily Latino area. I don't think there are other particular concentrations other than that area.
All right. Thank you.
Doug, just as a follow-up to that question, wouldn't a lot of the Hispanic population then be in that southern portion? That's part of the mining areas. I'm of course circling it with my own cursor here, which you can't see.
Yes, I mean, this, as you mentioned, the mining areas, this is kind of a large portion, at least, of the copper corridor that's been referred to in numerous public comments. Is largely tied together in this district. And that region does have a significant Latino population. again, the thought was that we would do these kind of in chunks, and so we'll come back with the next set next week.
Yeah, and my reaction to District 7 in terms of just compactness and contiguity, I see a lot of it is a reaction to, District 6, that when you carve out, different shapes to accommodate communities of interest, it has, ripple effect on the districts next to it. That also may have, more unusual shapes in order to, bring together those communities. And I think that's what we're seeing. But I think they've done good jobs of trying to honor the communities of interest so far. Yeah.
There's no other comments. We'll hand it back to you for the next agenda item.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And just colleagues will be prepared to be going through about a fourth of the districts at each business meeting. Staff will let us know, soon which districts they'll be. I presume they may just go in order, but we don't know. Okay, with that, we will move to agenda item number 7, Executive Director's Report and discussion thereof. I will turn it over to Director Schmidt and Lori Van Haren if she's on the line.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just give me 1 second while I pull up PowerPoint. All right, can you all see it? All right, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, thanks, Val. So first, I want to go over, just reiterate the ways that the public can submit comment to the commission. First is on our website. If you just go to the Contact Us link, you can send us any comments you have, any questions, and we will get them to the commissioners. As Mark showed you earlier, you can also submit them on the Mapping Hub, and those comments will be available for the public to see in the dashboard. You can also show up to our public hearings. All of them are listed online. If you want to come to the meeting but not necessarily speak, we're going to have paper maps at each of every district at all of the meetings, so you can submit that directly to us there. And then also in writing, if you want to mail us your map, our address is there and we will get it out to the commissioners. As Mark mentioned, we had our first Mapping Monday with Mark yesterday. It went really well. He goes over just the Mapping Hub, any questions that individuals have. So if you want to join us, here are the next 2 that we have coming up. And then I'm going to turn it over to Lori to talk about the virtual town halls.
I have a question, Brian. For those who only speak Spanish, is there an interpreter there on Monday? Or how would that happen if somebody wanted help but needs somebody to direct them in Spanish?
Sure. So we have been talking about adding one that's all done in Spanish. Also doing a virtual town hall that's all in Spanish. We're working with the translation company we use to try and figure that out and finalize those details. And then we'll post it and let the public know, and hopefully they'll join us.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. So we had our first virtual town hall on Saturday. We had 247 people show up or register to speak. We actually had almost 355 people online at one point. About approximately 200 people actually ended up speaking, so it lasted almost, I think just over 6 hours, almost 7 hours. So we have also scheduled, and you'll see them on the meeting link that Brian was talking about before on the irc.az.gov website. We have 3 more virtual town halls, and we are this time going to be regionally focused. So the next one coming up on Friday is the Southern and Eastern Arizona. Then we'll have Northern and Western Arizona and Maricopa County as the final one. And the idea here is really for the commissioners to be able to hear from constituents and citizens who are calling in about these specific areas. And so we will, again, have registration open until about an hour before the meeting so that we can organize the list and call people. One of the things I want to reiterate with the public is how WebEx works and how most online platforms work is the host cannot unmute you without you agreeing to be unmuted. So during these meetings, when people log in, if they have to be registered under the name that they signed up with, or we will not be able to find you. First name is usually not good enough. At least the last initial would be helpful. And then the second thing is when we send you a request, there will be a big pop-up box on your screen that says you've been requested to unmute, and then you'll be unmuted. We, in order to keep the meeting running smoothly, we unmute about 3 people at a time. So you may not be speaking at that specific point, and that's sometimes why you hear some feedback, but at least 3 people will be unmuted at a time. Do you have any questions about that, Commissioner?
Just, Lori, would you mind explaining how you organize the speakers? Because that came up last time. That would help.
So for Saturday, we have, as part of the registration form this last Saturday, because we understood how helpful it is for the commissioners to be able to be looking at one region at a time, we asked participants to let us know what part of Arizona they were speaking about. So when we did that, we were able to sort by those people who were speaking. We did a random sort too. So it's not necessarily the first come, first serve, but essentially just anybody who signed up on Saturday was able to speak. For future town halls, my understanding is there's a cutoff time at 2 hours. So we'll just be taking the first people who want to speak. They'll all be speaking about roughly the same areas. And we will cut off registration about an hour before the meeting.
And if people have spoken before?
Oh, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Lerner, that was my next point. So also, because all of the comments have been recorded, all of the meetings have been recorded, so the commissioners can go back and watch any of the meetings that they were unable to attend, or if they missed part of them, sometimes we do that as well. They'll be posted online on our website. If you have already spoken, or if there's a number of people who are saying the same thing, your comments will be recorded. We really want to encourage anybody who hasn't been able to participate, who maybe can't go into any of the public meetings. We really want to encourage those people to come and speak. And just rest assured, if you've already spoken, the commissioners have been listening to it. It's been recorded. It's in our public record now. And so there's not a need to come out, several times to say the same thing. We want to encourage the participation for all of Arizona.
Lori, there's something I'm not clear on. So the upcoming virtual town halls are capped at 2 hours, but you're accepting registration to speak up until an hour before those events. Are you capping it at a certain number so that you'll let the public know that there's no more openings for registrations? Because what if we get 100 speakers that want to speak?
Well, and we will cap it at a certain number. It's just because we have only done one, we weren't sure how many people are going to be able to show up for that time. So we didn't want to cut off registration if we're at number 59. We expect approximately 60 people to be registered. The first 60 people to be registered.
Okay, so there is an advantage to the public that if you're really interested in speaking at these other town halls, that if you register sooner, you're more likely to be guaranteed a spot.
That's correct.
And you will, either tweet or make it clear on our website if and when registration is finished, so people, understand that.
And sorry, Chairwoman, one of the things we want to make sure of is not just because 60 people sign up doesn't mean they're all logged in on that time, right? So we want to be able to I don't want to cut off registration if we have options for people to speak if other people decide at that time they're not going to speak. Does that make sense? So
Yes,
it's a little bit more complicated than
I hear what you're saying. Yes, we want to capitalize on the full 2 hours.
And Lori, if we find, I mean, we had so many people, which was great, as our chairwoman commented, the engagement is amazing. If we find that at this, these next 1 or 2 hearings, we're again having far more people attend than are able to speak, would we be considering adding another virtual town hall to accommodate the public? Because it was impressive on Saturday, but the 2 hour limit is I think a good approach.
absolutely, Commissioner Lerner. We can add as many of the virtual town halls as the commission would like.
And if we do have folks who register, who, if we have too many and we decide to add another one, we can still capture that information and let them know that we've scheduled another one if we need to.
And I want to make clear that we would be scheduling additional ones for the purpose of hearing people who have not yet been able to speak. Because to schedule them to have the same voices, repeat the same messages, it'll water down the quality of what we're hearing.
And that was all I had. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right. The next item I have is an overview of our budget expenditures to date. We are still, some of the expenses from the grid map tour are still coming in, so it'll change a little bit over time. But year-to-date personnel services and employee-related expenses are about $133,000. Our professional and outside services are at about 1.2 million. That includes mapping and legal fees. Travel is at about 2,000 right now. I expect that one to go up just based on all of our traveling and us hitting the road again tomorrow. Overall operating costs are at about 160,000. And then non-capital equipment is about 18,000. So, year to date, we're at about 1.5 million, which leaves us with about 6.3 million left. Are there any questions?
I think we're in a very solid position. And I think, as we've talked about before, the budget is something that's difficult to really nail down in terms of, projections in the future, because so much of it really depends on legally, what we see coming up and, probably within the next 6 weeks or so after we approve the final map. So but nicely managed.
Thank you. And that is all we have for you all, unless you have any questions for us.
No questions? All right, thank you for that update. We'll move to agenda item number 8, discussion of future agenda item requests. Okay, agenda item number 9, announcements. As we discussed, we should expect regular business meetings for the foreseeable future, Tuesdays at 8 a.m. for us to be able to review districts and address other business items that come up. We do have our public hearings. We have Yuma and Flagstaff tomorrow, Wednesday. In fact, I don't have this in front of me. We have Does any staff member have just the next 3 public hearings available?
Sure, let me pull those up. So Wednesday, November 10th at 6 p.m., we will be in Yuma at Yuma City Council Chambers, and also in Flagstaff at the High Country Conference Center. We'll have our virtual town hall on Friday, the 12th. And then Saturday, the 13th at 10 a.m., we will be at the Kroc Community Center in South Phoenix. And we will also be at, we'll be in Florence at the Florence Community Center. And then next Monday is Mapping with Mark at 1 o'clock. And then we'll have a regular business meeting next Tuesday.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And that's agenda item number 10, next meeting date. The business meeting will be next Tuesday at 8 a.m. And I would imagine a similar time frame.
Chair Newberg, I could just make sort of an announcement, but not really. But that the Saturday meeting, which was extensive and very well attended by the public, I just want to commend Mark for the work he did on the map. He was, as people were speaking, he was locating what they were talking about. He was on top of it for 5.5 hours. And I know that that was very stressful and strenuous as part of it. All I had to do was listen, but he had to work through it. So I just want to say thank you to Mark for that. I was very appreciative.
You're very welcome.
And our staff. I mean, you know, to navigate finding all of those people online, getting them muted, unmuted, training all of them how to use the technology, and then circling back to people who were missed and not losing track of them. I don't know how you did it, but I thought it was fabulous.
And I 100% agree. It was really impressive with the staff to keep going. It was a very long day, and you kept good humor and positive perspective on the whole thing. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah. Kudos all around. All right, so next meeting date, Tuesday, like we said, in addition to the hearings, we'll move to agenda item number 11, closing of the public comments. We'll now close comments. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 12, adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair Watchman, motions to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Meal seconds.
With no further discussion, Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye. With that, we will adjourn, and I look forward to seeing my colleagues and staff and as many of the public at the upcoming hearings. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.